This is the face of the man who killed my sister, and I want people in Ohio County to remember this face because he is walking free amongst you now.
My sister basically died because she was still in love with a man that was having an affair with another lady and had a child with that lady. And even though my sister was able to put that behind her, she died out of love. And she was going to do whatever it took to keep that relationship intact, and ultimately it cost her life. My name is Darrel Kessinger, and I'm retired from the military. I served in the military for 30 years. I'm a veteran of Operation Desert Storm and a veteran of Iraqi Freedom. I went in 1975 and I retired in 2005. Yes, I've been stationed in Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan. Well, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1958. Shortly after that, in 1960, we moved to a little town in Hartford, Kentucky, and I basically grew up in Hartford, Kentucky up until I was 11 years old, and then I went to stay with my mother who lived up in Illinois.
Being a soldier, serving his country, protecting his people, turned Darrell into a tough man. However, all this didn't have him to protect his own sister. Darrell's sister, Patricia Ann Calloway, was born on June 20, 1954. On March 3, 1993, she was missing in Hartford, Kentucky. The story around Patricia's missing was considered as one of the most mysterious cases in Hartford, Kentucky. It all started when Patricia's husband decided to ask his brother to burn their house down for insurance.
Well, the story actually has a lot of twists and turns and actually involves a whole lot of different incidents. But a lot of what caused everything to domino and get out of control all goes back to an arson that was committed in 1991. And during that time frame, my sister's ex-husband hired his brother to burn her house down in a act to collect insurance. During that process, my sister was here in Arkansas visiting with my mother, and she received a phone call from her husband at that time that he was going to burn the house down. And apparently my sister had no clue that they were actually going to do that. So she immediately packed and left and went back to Arkansas, back to Kentucky. But by the time she got there, the house had already burnt down.
After this incident, Patricia found out that her husband, Larry Ray Calloway, committed adultery. She began to threaten him that she would disclose the whole burning incident. Patricia told her brother-in-law, Vernon Calloway, about what she was going to do to stop her husband from seeing his mistress. However, she didn't know that this action actually cost her life.
And later on, what had transpired, her husband began to have an affair with a younger girl, and he got her pregnant. And so in an attempt to stop her husband to withdraw from that type of activity, she began to threaten and blackmail him with arson, basically stating that if he didn't discontinue seeing this girl, that she was going to turn them in for the arson, you know, even if it meant her going to jail in whatever her role may have possibly been in the situation. So apparently word got back to her brother-in-law, which was her husband's brother, of what she was going to do. So he took it upon himself to take her life to keep her quiet.
In order to cover up the murder, Vernon cooperated with his wife, Darrel Kessinger, to pretend and make people believe that Patricia actually was still alive. She was just so upset and ran away from the town for a couple weeks.
Actually, on the day of her disappearance, it was March 3rd, 1993. According to eyewitnesses, the brother-in-law came to her workplace, and apparently he had a copy of a newspaper which had indicated that her husband had filed for a marriage license with a young girl he'd been having an affair with, and obviously that upset my sister, and for whatever reason she left with him that day, and she was never seen or heard from again. Because a lot of things happened on the day of my sister's disappearance. There was eyewitnesses that said they had seen my sister walking down the street the same day that she disappeared, but we later found out that that was the killer's wife disguised as my sister walking down the street. And the reason why they had did that, they wanted to mislead the authorities into believing that she had ran away rather than them murder her. So they needed a decoy, and that's how they did that.
Just like all other brothers who have a missing sister, Darrell turned to the police to ask for justice. However, in a small town like Hartford, blunders were inevitable.
What is unusual about this case, this is one of those cases, it was never unsolved. It was just unproven. I knew from day one when I learned of the circumstances surrounding my sister's death and her disappearance, I knew immediately what had happened, and I knew the people that were involved in it. And unfortunately, you know, this happens a lot in some of these cases. You know, there was a lot of blunders committed by the officials in the beginning of the investigation. You know, we have to remember sometimes in these little small communities, the officials lack training in areas of murder and missing person cases and different types of circumstances that surrounded my sister's disappearance. So a lot of blunders were committed, and mistakes and things that were just overlooked. The prime examples is we were having a meeting just shortly after my sister disappeared. It was probably around the 20th of March of '93, and we met with the investigating officer, and the killer shows up. Well, I already suspect that he killed my sister, so this is really an awkward situation. So he's in the meeting, and anyway, his name is mentioned, and he gets a little upset about that and starts blurting out that, you know, he came to my sister's workplace that way because he had a wife that worked there and his girlfriend worked there. And he and I actually exchanged some words, you know, and I at that time, you know, let him know my feelings about how I felt about what happened, and that he was somewhat involved in my sister's disappearance. And at the time, I noticed a bite mark on his hand, or what appeared to be a prevalent bite mark in between his thumb and his forefinger. And I questioned him about that, and he and we exchanged words. And to me, it was obviously a bite mark. It was fresh. I clearly could see the impression of the teeth. And I confronted him about it and asked him, you know, did my sister bite you while you were killing her? And he never responded back to that. The detective ran him out of there to diffuse the situation. But from that moment on, the investigators never took a photograph of his hand, never took any type of cast, never made any type of documentation about that incident or the bite mark. And that was really a big piece of the puzzle at that time, and a big clue as to what happened to my sister, because he was a primary suspect at the time. So that's just one of the many blunders that I'm speaking about when I speak of blunders that happened during my sister's case, and it was blunders like that caused the whole investigation to just kind of curtail and go cold.
While the authorities seem to be impotent, the case went cold, and Darrell has a lot of things to worry about in his life. He has not given up on finding the truth in his sister's case.
What happened later on, the case went cold, and there was just absolutely no investigation going on. And then I got deployed during Desert Storm, and so I didn't come back until '93, and that's when I started learning about all the situations and everything going on. But Then from 2001 to 2004, I got deployed again during Iraqi Freedom, so I was unable to really push the issue of my sister's case until I returned. But upon my return, I started looking into it again and just discovered nothing was being done. And in search and rescue, we have this motto or this saying, out of sight, out of mind, which basically means if you don't keep the subject matter out there for people to hear and people to see and keep the local media on it, well, it goes away. And unfortunately, in a lot of these little small towns, that's how the officials like it. They would prefer that it go away because, and the reason before that is because these small communities, they don't have the resources or the manpower to do long-term investigations. So it's in their best interest if it just goes away.
Darrell has been seeking justice for his sister for almost 20 years. One day, all his hard working was paid off, even though it seemed like all the members from the husband family cooperated very well to cover up the crime. On the day Patricia was murdered, one of the brothers actually saw her dead body, and finally he admitted what he saw in the court.
What happened was, apparently, the day of my sister's murder, one of the brothers seen my sister's deceased body in the back of his blazer. And he, in his testimony in the trial, he said that he did come forward and tell the sheriff that he seen my sister's body, but he claims no one believed him. So I think on about around 2009, he got into some type of trouble. And in an effort to avoid a bigger sentence, he came forward with information again that he had seen my sister's deceased body. And from my understanding, he was polygraphed 3 times and he passed the polygraph. Now, what I want people and the audience to understand is this family covered this murder for 20-something years. All of them knew what happened. All of them talked amongst themselves. But yet, they all conspired to cover this murder until this one brother comes forward and admits that he actually seen my sister's body the day that she was murdered, and that they had her in the back of trash bags, and she was in the back of his brother's blazer. And he said at the time they were cleaning the blazer up, and that is consistent with what the police found when they apprehended the vehicle and sent it off for forensics, that it was proven that all the carpet had been ripping out, all the interior, everything had been cleaned out. They illuminated it. They couldn't find anything except for the fact that it had been really cleaned out really well. During the process of the charges, one of the charges was tampering with physical evidence. So they had taken away clues that could have led up to my sister being in that vehicle.
Even though there were some blunders about Patricia K., Darrell didn't blame anything on the authority. He thought that his sister Kay was a hard case to solve because there was no dead body to be found.
No, I don't blame it on them. I do hold them accountable for some of the mistakes that they made, but again, I have to understand this is a circumstantial case. We didn't have a body. So first we had to prove that there had been a crime committed, and that's the most difficult thing to do in any missing persons case. I mean, the first thing you have to prove is, one, are they missing? Two, if they are missing, what is their welfare? Are they alive? Are they just missing? Did they just run away? What are the circumstances behind the disappearance? Because for every one person that disappears, there's 1,000 clues leading up to that disappearance. So that's the job of the investigators. That's the job of the search and rescue personnel, is to figure out these clues and take them, put them together. With my sister's case, the only way I can describe it is just imagine a large puzzle, and you only have one piece of it, and you're trying to figure out what the whole picture is, and sometimes it's difficult until you start to put all the pieces together. And unfortunately in this case it took 20 plus years to do that. But in my mind I already knew who killed her, but the burden of proof was on the state. We had to prove to a jury in court beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed this hideous crime, and ultimately we were able to do that this past May without a body.
The trial was held without the deceased body. Vernon and Deborah were charged for the murder crime. During their jail time, Deborah actually called her daughter and revealed there was a box buried behind their house which kept a confession letter from Vernon and a map of where they buried Patricia.
Actually, what had happened when they were arrested, both the murderer and the co-conspirator, they were actually arrested and they were incarcerated. They were charged with 4 counts. They were charged with kidnapping. They were charged with murder, tampering with physical evidence, and coercing witnesses. During the time they were in jail, the wife made a call to her ex-daughter-in-law telling them about something being buried behind their house. And they actually had a recording of this conversation, and it was admitted in the court, and we listened to it. And during the course of the conversation, she lets them believe that she doesn't know what's in the box, but yet she knows where the box is. And during the conversation, as they get closer, she gets happier and just thrilled that they're there. And then when they actually find it, she says, "That's it, that's it, that's it." But all the time she's saying she doesn't know what it is. But what was in the box was a confession letter by the murderer and a map indicating where my sister was buried. And we believe that that she wrote it and he copied it for the simple fact that he couldn't read or write. So we believe that she wrote the letter and he recopied it. And we believe that the reason why he did this was he thought he was dying at the time, and he was family. He was, my sister's husband was his brother. So I'm not going to say it was remorse, but I'm saying I believe he wanted us to find her, but he didn't want us to find her while he was alive because he didn't want to have to be sentenced to prison. And basically what the letter says is, I kill Patsy. No one had nothing to do with it but me. Not Debbie, which was the wife, not Larry, being the brother. But in my mind, I think he did them more harm than good. If someone has nothing to do with a crime, why implicate them to begin with? So in her mind, finding this letter, in her mind, she was thinking that it would exonerate her, because he says in his own words, I killed her, not Debbie, not Larry. So she's thinking, okay, you find the letter, then I'm going to walk free because he said he did it, I didn't have anything to do with it. Even though during the course of the trial we found no evidence to link her to the murder, we did find sufficient enough evidence to link her to facilitating the murder. And basically what facilitate means is she knew about it, she went along with it, and did nothing to stop it.
Found guilty of facilitating a murder, tampering with evidence, and retaliation in connection with the disappearance of Patricia Calloway. Western Kentucky Bureau Chief Mike Pickett has reaction from Patricia's family.
At the very beginning of Patricia missing, Darrell thought that she was mad because of her husband's affair, and that's why she ran away. As time went by, he realized this wasn't the case.
I mean, my first thoughts were the same as everyone else's, because that's what this family had everyone believing. Everyone had us believing that she got mad because she seen a newspaper article about her husband getting married, and she got mad and she just needed some time away. So we all believe that to be the case. We believe that, okay, she's mad, maybe she just needs to get a little time to herself, take a breather. When she gets over it, she'll be back. Well, as the days went by and the weeks and the months and the years, well, we realized that wasn't the case. But in my mind, when I learned the circumstances behind her disappearance, I knew these people involved. I grew up with them, I've known them all my life, so I knew what they were capable of doing. I never had a doubt in my mind that something had went wrong. I didn't know how he did it or where they disposed of her body, but I knew that she was no longer with us. I knew that from day one.
After the tough 20 years Darrell has been through, he decided to become a social rescue tech in order to have other families who had the same situation as him.
But throughout all this process, I've now have become a search and rescue tech. I'm NASAR qualified, which is National Association of Search and Rescue. I'm also an independent search and rescue tech. I'm a member of an organization out of Kentucky called Jody Power Search and Rescue, and I'm a member of the Southeast Canine Search and Rescue out of McEwen, Tennessee. So I've really got involved in helping other families, and I've actually pulled away from my own sister's case to help other families and assist in searches. And the reason behind doing that is because I've gained so much knowledge throughout the 20 years of doing my own investigations that I feel like I can share my experiences with other families, and as a whole, our organization feels like no other family should ever have to endure anything like this. So we do everything within our power and means to be that buffer between the family and the police. We're the counselors, we're the comforters, we're the people that sit and listen. Whereas the police, they come, they take their investigation, they get all the details behind the circumstances, and the family may not ever hear from that officer again. And a lot of people don't see the big picture, and that's where we as search and rescue techs, we've been there, we've done that, and a lot of our members all have something in common. We all have a missing loved one. We all have experienced this. So we're able to share our experiences with a family. Someone off the street just cannot walk up to me and say, hey, I know how you feel. Unless they have experienced it, they do not know how I feel. In order to tell me they know how I feel, they must have been through what I've been through or experienced it alongside with someone else that's went through it. So it's really a sticky subject, and when you're dealing with these families, it's not so much how you say or what you say it. You know, it's the passion behind what you say, you know, and your intent. You know, and to do what we do, you have to be a very compassionate person. You have to have passion. You have to be sympathetic with the feelings of others, and sometimes it's really a difficult job.
Is it hard to let your loved one go, especially when you have a strong bond with her since you were just a kid? Patricia took care of Darrell like a mother. There was a strong bond between them which cannot be understood by others. There were times Darrell was told by his family to give up on Patricia's case because it wasted his time and money.
My mother and dad divorced when I was only 2. So my sister was 6. So she was 4 years older than me. So imagine you're being pulled from the mother you knew, and all of a sudden your father's remarried another woman. And she's not a whole lot older than your sister. I think when my dad married my stepmother, she was 13 or 14. So you basically had a child taking care of a child, and a child taking care of a child. You know, the mother taking care of my sister taking care of me, because this woman was a stranger to me. I didn't know who she was. So my sister was like, she was my sister, she was my mother, she was my best friend. I mean, we were just really tight. And when you have circumstances like that, you know, that creates that bonding that that we shared, and a lot of people don't understand that.
Darrell and Patricia might be separated by fate, but the bond between them remains ever strong. Because of the infinite love Darrell has for Patricia, he was able to claim justice for her even though it took him almost 20 years.
And I've had a lot of difficult time with even my own family trying to explain to them, which I shouldn't have to explain. I shouldn't have to explain the love for my sister. You know, no one should have to explain why they love someone. I found myself on the defense, why are you pursuing this? Why are you wasting your money? And this came from my own very family right here, and they were probably my worst critic. All I heard was, why are you spending all this money going to Kentucky? You're never going to arrest anybody. You're never going to find them. You're never going to put anybody in jail. Why are you doing this? Just let it go. To them, that may have been an easy thing to do, but because of my bond with my sister, I couldn't let it go. And I think any brother out there that cares about their sister, or any sister out there that cares about their brother, then they would understand completely what I'm talking about. But you do have families out there that are so disgruntled with one another and are so far separated amongst themselves that there's a likelihood that there are families out there that wouldn't do that. But I felt like that this is what I had to do. This was my calling, and I feel like what I'm doing now is in memory of my sister. That's why I carry on what I do for other families, because I don't want her death to be in vain. I want her memory to carry on. I want to share her story with other families because that is important to me. Even though we haven't recovered her body, doesn't mean that I can't keep her memory alive and share her story with others. And so that's why I do what I do.
To keep Patricia's memory forever and share his experience to others, Darrell co-authored with Tina Cummins to write a book about the murder. The book was named An Arson, a Wig, and a Murder.
I actually have a book that I have co-written with another author in Kentucky. Her name is Tina Cummins. Even though she hasn't been found, we're confident that she is out there. Even though the police haven't found her, they basically went out there and sporadically dug, and you can't find a body like that. And the only analogy I can use on a situation like that is, imagine being on a front porch that's covered with slat planks, and you drop a coin between them. And you start ripping up a plank here, you rip up a plank there, you rip up a plank over there, but you never find the coin. And the reason why you never find the coin is because you're jumping all around the coin. In order to find the coin, you're going to have to rip every plank up until you find the coin. I have no doubt in my mind that she's out there, and we are going to recover her. Ultimately, that's my goal, and we're going to recover her remains, and we're going to bring her home. We're going to bury her with dignity and respect.
What makes a brother-sister relationship special is the way each other remember the other when they are apart. They miss the talks, the laughs, and the times they spend together. Life change, but memories don't. My name is Bing Chuan, and thank you for watching.